Respect. Respect is a good movie. Respect. Hudson kills it as the queen. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watch or Pass, and today I'm here to talk about Respect, which is a biopic. It's about a little-known independent artist named Aretha Franklin. Okay, you all know who Aretha Franklin is. She's a megastar. She is insanely influential. I mean, she's the queen of soul. She kind of brought R&B music into the mainstream, I think, from what I can tell from the movie, and also from what I kind of remember. I mean, she's a big deal, and this film is also a big deal because it chronicles her life. It's headlined by Jennifer Hudson, who plays Aretha. I mean, Aretha is a tough person to cast, but if you're going to try to pick someone to kind of take on the queen, Jennifer Hudson is a good choice. I mean, she's a fantastic actor. She's a fantastic singer. She kind of has, that characteristic that you would need in someone trying to take on Aretha, and she does a fantastic job. I'm going to talk a little bit about the film. Three things I like, two things I didn't really love about it, and then I'm going to go into the ending. So if you don't want to know anything about the film, just turn this off. You can go to watchorpass.com. That's where I post my written reviews. They're more vague. They just they don't have any spoilers, so you can read that there. Or you can just watch the film when it comes out in theaters on August 13th, 2021, and then you can come back and watch this video. So the film is headlined by Jennifer Hudson, who plays Aretha. And the other kind of main figure in this film and her life is Forest Whitaker, who plays her father, Reverend C.L. Franklin. And the film goes into kind of Aretha's entire life. It starts when she's a kid, when she is waking up singing at her father's kind of social gatherings, kind of, learning gospel music, singing, getting her voice, getting her feel for performing and getting her kind of sea legs under her. And then it goes through in her breaking out in the music industry, and a lot of the troubles that she went through to get into the music industry, and some of the issues that she had to overcome, and also some demons from her past that kind of kept coming up through her life. And it goes essentially through her career up until this kind of monumental, important gospel album that she released in 1972, which is kind of where the film caps it off at. And so it's a really good exploration of, a very major part of her life, and pretty much her entire formative life is shown in this film. And then, it's for someone that, knows of Aretha, everyone knows who Aretha Franklin is, but for someone who didn't really follow her past or didn't really learn much about her past, it's a great kind of introduction to her life. So, the first thing that I love, so I'm going to go to the things I loved about this movie. And there's a lot to love about this movie. It's a very good movie. It's a very dramatic movie. The first thing I loved is, of course, the music. I mean, this film has Aretha Franklin songs, and Aretha Franklin songs because you've been living for the, however long you've been living, like you've been in this world. Her songs are iconic, and the film kind of goes through pretty much all of her major hits. And so it's fantastic music, and Jennifer Hudson does a really good job as Aretha. I don't think she hits quite the same highs that Aretha does, but I don't think anyone could, and Jennifer Hudson does a fantastic job. I mean, her renditions are beautiful, soulful. You instantly know which song it is, and you start kind of bobbing your head with the music. This film has kind of every song that you would kind of associate easily with Aretha Franklin. It has a good variety of her music. The second thing I loved about this film is the cast. I mean, the cast is very, very well done. It's an all-black cast for the most part. There's a few white characters, but for the most part, it's an all-black cast, and it's headlined by Jennifer Hudson, who, as I said, does a fantastic job as Aretha. And Forest Whitaker as her father, that was actually a very interesting role, to see, because he's a very conflicted character. He is a reverend. He is kind of a leader in his community and of his church, but also he cultivates this group of, influential Black singers, influential Black social, revolutionaries, I guess, because he calls Dr. Martin Luther King as one of his friends growing up. And so he is kind of a kingmaker, I guess, if you would think of it that way. He definitely has ties to a lot of people, but he is a member of the church. And so he is also always preaching the gospel, but then he internally has some conflicts of his own. He has his own insecurities. He has his own demons, I guess, if you want to put it that way. And his character has to go back and forth through this. And so some scenes he is this wonderful supportive father, and other scenes he is this person trying to get, trying to capitalize on his daughter's talent. The reasons are kind of unclear. Sometimes it seems like maybe he just wants her to, to realize her talent and show her God-given gift. Other times it does feel like he is trying to kind of ride the managerial aspect of it. But overall, his character is very interesting and very, kind of pivotal to this film. And he and his insecurities and his sometimes brutal parenting style do form a large part of what makes Aretha, and also what what haunts Aretha throughout a lot of the film. And another person that was really interesting to see is Marlon Wayans as Ted White, who is Aretha's first manager and also her first husband. I mean, Marlon Wayans is a fantastic actor. I mean, if you didn't know that already, I know he started off as a very good comedic actor, but in this film, he is a fantastic actor, and in this film, he does a really good job as Ted, because he has another conflicted character. There's a lot of very conflicted characters in this film, and it's a very interesting kind of film to watch. You get to see all these conflicts that these characters have come to a head, and Marlon Wayans' character as Ted is one of them. He's kind of a hustler. He's a music manager, but he also he seems to have some underhanded tactics to how he goes about his business. But he's also a very controlling person and a very, demanding person, and a physically violent person, as you'll find out in the film. But he also has this kind of aspect where he does encourage Aretha and does kind of help her break free of her father's influence. I mean, he is kind of a stepping stone for Aretha to then become Aretha, and she has to go through some really terrible things with him in order to kind of find her voice and find her inner strength. But he is a character that encourages her and builds her up, and then does terrible things and is controlling her career and is very insecure. But his character is a fascinating one. I really liked seeing him, even though I didn't like everything he did. Seeing Marlon Wayans as Ted was a very interesting experience. And the film also has a ton of other characters from Aretha's life and her past. But those are the kind of the three that stood out to me. But the rest of the cast, I mean, the cast is very well done. I also really liked her, I guess, music label contact, Jerry Wexler, who's played by Marc Maron. He also is a fun character, because he's kind of your typical, if you were to stereotype a New York music icon, it would be this character. And he's a lot of fun to see. He's kind of over the top. He's to the point. He has no filter, but he also clearly does care about Aretha and want to make her happy. And so that's also another character that's really fun to see. So one other thing I really loved about this film is I really loved that the film, I think one of the messages was that music can really kind of unite people, because there's this great scene where Aretha goes to record one of her albums, and she goes down to this recording studio in Alabama, because they're like, you need musicians that understand soul. And she was promised a black band, and she was expecting a black band. She gets in there, and they're all white players. And it's this really striking scene where, I think she expects, and the audience also kind of expects, that they would be hostile towards her, or that, this would be a hostile scene. But kind of as you see, as they kind of start working, she eventually just agrees to use them, because, they are, she's assured they're very good. And then as they start to make the music, you can see this recognition of just each other's talents, and of, hoping for the music. Like, they start riffing off of each other, and they start building, and she gives them direction, and they take it. And it's a really beautiful scene, because you get to see how this kind of shared experience, this shared interest, can really break down other social barriers. And I think that's something that you see throughout this film, as you see, people who, this love of music, and especially this love of Aretha's music, kind of bringing people together. And that's something that I think it's pretty true. I mean, I think if you meet someone and you have similar interests, I think any other issues that you might have, I think those can break down. Like, you can kind of start seeing people as people and connecting with them. And so that's another thing I loved about this film, is just seeing that kind of universal human aspect to it. And then the last thing I really loved about this film is kind of, I'll call it the ups and downs. I mean, this film felt like a realistic, almost no filter type of look into Aretha's life. And I'm sure there were things that were left out. I'm sure there were things that were sanded down, but there's a lot of very traumatic experiences that Aretha goes through and that are shown in this film, from some very early age traumatic experiences to some of the things that happened in her first marriage and some of the insecurities that she had and some of her own demons when she was combating her own insecurities and her own kind of need to always be at the top. And it's a very good thing, I think, to showcase these superstars who in your mind have everything and some of the challenges that they go through, because you do kind of, I think sometimes you hear about celebrities and some of the issues that they have, and it's kind of tough to relate that. And even in a movie, it's sometimes tough to relate that. But I think this film does a very good job of showing where her demons came from and kind of how they affected her life and how that, then affected her relationships and her own confidence and, things of that nature. And so it's good to kind of show these icons that you think just have these blessed lives. At least I did, because I didn't read up about her. If I had actually researched her life, I would have known how dark her past could have been, sometimes was, and some of the issues that she went through. But for me, not knowing anything about that, it's good to see these icons that you kind of associate with having this like amazing talent and this God-given ability and this star-crossed life, and to see some of the things that they went through as they were growing up, because it does humanize them and also show how strong they actually were. So things I didn't love, and to be clear, this film is a very good film. I liked pretty much everything about it. These things that I didn't love aren't that major. I mean, they're not going to really affect your enjoyment of the film. And so, really there's only one major thing I didn't like, and it's some parts do feel a little rushed. And I think that's probably because there was more in this film. There's probably a longer cut. The film was already 2 hours and 25 minutes, which is pretty long for a theatrical release. So I imagine some things were cut or shortened in order to fit it even in a 2 hour and 25-minute window. But there are some things that did feel rushed. At the beginning, there were some chunks that were left out. I can't tell if there were pieces that were filmed and taken out, or if they did seem to leave some of those chunks unexplained so that you could then later learn more about what happened at in Aretha's young life. But that did lay the beginning to feel like there were some things that were missing. There was some explanation that I thought that was missing, and some aspects that came on a little too quickly. And then also, I think the middle is very well done, and then kind of towards the end, there are some big jumps in the timeline and in her career that I think, again, there was probably something that was there that was cut in order to fit it into a theatrical window. So those, there are some pieces that do feel a little bit rushed, but the film is already 2 hours and 25 minutes. So I can't fault them for wanting to shorten it a little bit, because, a 3-hour film is probably great for, some film person to watch. But I think, in a theater, it's going to run into kind of the edge of what you can have in a theater. So I understand why they cut it. So that being said, let's talk a little about the ending. And the ending is one of those things that, there were some things I didn't love, but the ending itself, the payoff is fantastic. So in the ending of the film, Aretha at this point, kind of towards the end, she has proven herself. She's found her voice. She's broken up with Ted and married her, I don't know if she married her current husband or she married her husband at that time, or if they were just living together. I didn't remember exactly from the film, but she kind of, she has her own house. She has her, someone that loves and supports her. She has her family around her, but she is also running herself ragged. She is trying to stay on top. She's trying to do more than I think she can actually manage. And this is because of some of her own insecurities, this like need to always be on top, this need to like show that she can keep doing it and keep doing it at a high level, even though she is exerting herself far too much. And everyone around her recognizes that, but Aretha, being this person that has this internal need to always be on top, lashes out at all of her family when they try to tell her to slow down. She's playing this tour that just has this completely unrealistic schedule, and her family's kind of saying, no, like, don't do that. But she basically goes into each of them and says, we're doing this tour. So then it kind of flashes to this, one of her performances on this tour where she is either exhausted or drunk. I think she's drunk at this, but she's probably also exhausted. It's probably a combination of the two. and her performance is very bad, and you can see that in the audience's reaction. And then she eventually falls off stage because she either passes out or she's so drunk that she can't really tell where she is. So she falls off stage. It's, stops the performance, um, and she kind of wakes up back at home. And this part of the time I'm not 100% sure on, but essentially she wakes up and she's at home and she sees her dead mother at the piano, and she kind of like has a heart to heart with her dead mother, which, her mother was very supportive when she was a kid and then died when she was young. So there's definitely some abandonment issues, I think, there. I'm not 100% sure, what specifically her demon was, but she definitely loved her mother. Her mother was a very supportive person in her life, and then her mother just kind of disappeared very quickly from her life. And so her dead mother coming back, it was a touching scene, although I didn't love that part of it because it did kind of make it seem like, I don't know, I'm trying to think, like Aretha was such a strong character and she's such a strong person, and the film is about her being internally strong, but then also the support she gets around her. So it's not unheard of for her, for the support to overcome her kind of alcoholism, and her inner demons might have come from her mother, but it just felt odd to have her mother be this person that then kind of redeems her, because she had a good support network. She had people that loved her around her, and she also was a very strong person. So, well, I don't know. I felt like it may have been nicer to have her come to this conclusion on her own, or have her family finally then come and help her. I don't know what her story is. Maybe that's actually what happened. Maybe she did have a vision of her mother, and that did help her overcome her alcoholism and her demons. It just felt strange in the film, but it was also a touching scene. So, I can't really fault it that much. But she kind of then starts to clean up her act. She starts putting away, throwing away some of the bottles, the empty bottles in her house, because there are a lot of them. And her husband comes home and sees her and just starts helping. Like he is a very supportive character. He was a fantastic, fantastic person in her life, at least in the film. And so it was great to see him like come home after, she's basically kind of shunned everyone in her family, and he instantly is kind of like recognizes that she's trying to clean up and trying to fix her, overcome her own insecurities, and so he helps her. So this kind of lets her lead to a realization that, I think when she was talking to her mother, God came up, and so she kind of comes to this realization that she needs to go back to what, to where she felt supported, where she felt strong, or where she felt like she could overcome her demons, which is when she was singing in the church. I feel like she had kind of become disconnected as she went, more into the pop world and into kind of her superstardom, and so she feels like she needs to go back and reconnect with her roots, which is understandable. I mean, she came a very long way from her upbringing, so it makes sense. She then tells her manager Jerry that she wants to do a gospel album, and he is against it completely because, apparently gospel albums didn't sell. But he eventually agrees because she is adamant about it. But he says, I want to also do a documentary, essentially so that people can see where you come from. And Aretha sees through this. He wants a documentary so that white viewers can relate to her and kind of relate to her Southern church, I guess Southern Baptist upbringing. I think she's Southern Baptist. And she agrees. She says that's a great idea. So they go out and she then goes back to one of her I think she goes back to her childhood church. And one of the pastor there is a childhood friend. And so he kind of like, it's really fun to see, because I think at this point, a lot of people would be in awe of her, but he has known her since she was a little girl. So he obviously loves her and is in awe of her ability, but he doesn't show it. He treats her like the kid that he mentored growing up. And even though she's a superstar, it's really fun to see the superstar walk back into a church and have everyone kind of recognize her as Aretha, or I think it was the girl that was growing up around them. So during her practice, she breaks down, I think because she's overcome with emotion, or maybe she's overcome with nerves. Something is, she's scared about doing this album, and also about the film crew being there and what will happen if she messes up. And he goes and counsels her and basically says, like, look, like, you're you're not doing this for you, you're not doing this for the film crew, you're doing this for God, and that's who's giving you this voice, and that's who's giving you this opportunity. And then that's a really good scene again, because it does help connect her back to her roots and connect her back to her faith and what she drew strength from. So then it cuts to the actual performance day. And when she's getting ready, her husband shows up, but then also her father shows up. And she'd been estranged from her dad for a bit ever since they disagreed on kind of where the civil rights movement was going to go. He wanted a Martin Luther King kind of non-violence approach to change, and she wanted a more active approach. And so that kind of caused this rift to appear, and it seems like they hadn't really spoken much since then. But he shows up for her performance because it's a touching moment. He gets to kind of say his apologies to her for doubting her and how she kind of has exceeded all of his expectations. He pushed her very hard when she was young, but she has exceeded everything that he expected. He thought that she could be. She's done it all and then more. And so it's a very touching scene when they finally kind of make up. And then she goes out and does the performance. And this scene, the performance scene, the end scene, it'll give you chills. It's so well done, because it basically has her walk into this church, and the film does this really kind of close up of her face, and especially her mouth and the microphone. And that's basically all you can see, is just her face, the microphone, and this amazing rendition of Amazing Grace that Jennifer Hudson does. And it's slow, it's soulful. It is a beautiful, beautiful scene, and it's so simple and yet so amazing. And so, it shows essentially just her singing Amazing Grace. It does cut a little bit, I think, to the audience, but for the most part, it is just you with Jennifer Hudson, and she's just belting out this beautiful version of Amazing Grace. And it is a very, very impactful scene. And then you get a few, and as she's singing this, there's little snippets that pop up about her life and, things that happened after this album. And you find out now that this album then ended up being the 1972 Amazing Grace album, ended up becoming her best-selling album of all time. And then you kind of go into some more things about her life, things that happened later, and all the accolades she got. And it's a really great way to kind of end this film and have it come full circle, where she, went back to the church, went back to her roots, and also overcame a lot of her demons. Now that the ending does have a certain Hollywood sense to it, because everything kind of worked out, and it also seemed to have worked out without more intervention. I don't know if she did have more intervention, but it did seem to work out a little bit too much. But this ending scene is beautiful, and it's a great way to end this film. And the film itself is very good. So if you have any interest in Aretha Franklin, if you are a person and you know her music, which you are, you should see this film. So that's Respect. It's in theaters on August 13, 2021. It's a very good film. It's a very good rendition. It's a very good telling of a important figure's life, and you should definitely check it out in theaters, or check it out whenever you can. But you should definitely check it out. It's really, really good. So that's Respect. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.